Well, Luke, today we're going to be reviewing Don't Look Up. That's right, we're going to be watching the 2009 Pixar classic with our eyes closed.
I see, I get it, because don't look at up.
Yes.
So, yeah, we can only hear the audio of it. And that means, of course, that opening scene, that incredibly emotional scene of the old guy going through his life, his wife dying. It's basically all visual, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
it was really disappointing.
Yeah, we really fell flat, that. I was expecting it to be a lot more, emotionally charged, but for me it just wasn't. I don't know.
Yeah. I also enjoyed our classic Don't Listen, Wally, where afterwards we watched the whole thing on mute, of course, and apparently we really missed an interesting quirk of the way the main character spoke.
Yes. That would be, I think, less funny, but you know what? Still okay. Yeah, but no, obviously we are reviewing the actual movie Don't Look Up, Michael. And all I can say is don't look up the Rotten Tomatoes score for this movie.
I actually haven't.
Yeah, because it's quite bad, which is something we'll get into. So let's go.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke. And this week we are celebrating the 0-year anniversary, as I like to say, when we're reviewing an actually very recent film. And the film we're reviewing is Don't Look Up, as already mentioned in the cold open. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Don't Look Up, and also, of course, why it is we're watching it.
Sure thing, Michael. So why are we reviewing this movie? Well, it's basically because we had to do a movie at the start of the year, and I was like, you know what, we've got a good opportunity to review this movie, Don't Look Up, which I believe is the third most watched movie in Netflix history. Of course, who knows how true that is? Really, Netflix could just make a bunch of stuff up about it, but I know it got a lot of attention on Twitter across the holiday season. A lot of people had a lot of opinions on this movie. It really captured a lot of people's attention and was at the forefront of the cultural zeitgeist, I guess.
Yeah, I can't wait to see people debating for years to come. Is Don't Look Up a Christmas movie?
Do they have a Christmas scene at the end? Is it Christmas or is it just?
Yeah. I mean, it should have been Christmas. That would have been clever.
Yeah, so it's a Christmas movie. Yeah. But anyway, so I thought, hey, why not do this? Because a lot of people got a lot of opinions, and I'm sure everybody wants to hear our opinions on this movie. And I do enjoy it. Like when these movies that are not ruining my favorite franchise, like the Last Jedi, that are very controversial.
Yes.
Like this movie.
It's a fun kind of controversy.
Yeah, it's like it's got a lot of people talking, a lot of opinions, and that's fun. At the same time, it's crucial. It's not ruining again, a franchise like Star Wars. But yeah, so that's fun. It's fun to watch, to get involved and see what people are saying about it. So yeah, Don't Look Up. Let's go. Thank you, Adam McKay, for giving us this. It is a 2021 American satirical science fiction film written, produced, and directed by Adam McKay. It stars a bunch of people. Oh, do you know who the story's by as well? Sorry. You won't know this. Adam McKay and David Sirota.
Oh, wait, hold on. David Sirota's is he a guy on Twitter who does politics stuff?
Yes, he worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign, I do believe.
Wow.
In 2020. And so you had a lot of really funny tweets from people who were like, oh, I enjoyed Don't Look Up, but then I saw it was written by David Sirota, and that ruined it for me.
Oh, yeah, I see. Are we talking about the Shillery people? Yeah,
the Shillery rotten content. There we go.
Yes, there we go.
I was thinking, what could I do? Content. It's right there. It's right there for me. But yeah, it's hilarious how these people hate Bernie Sanders so much and people associated with him when it is kind of weird, and maybe it would make them step back and think, wait a minute, I hate this guy David Sirota even though he produced a piece of media that I like and I agree with politically. Maybe Bernie Sanders and David Sirota aren't. But anyway, people have been fucking brain damaged on Twitter so much that whatever. The 2016 primary will forever live on, even though those people fucking won the primary. They won it.
Yeah, there's such a thing as being a sore winner.
Yeah, but they're still so salty, and I guess because Hillary lost in November, kind of proved the Bernie people correct. Because of course Michael Bernie would have won. Bernie would have won. But anyway, that's enough of that. Actually, to be fair, we will probably mention Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders later because it's kind of inevitable.
Yes.
But yeah, the movie ain't really about that so much, which is again why people getting obsessed about that kind of stuff is just ridiculous. And I did see a few tweets like that. It wasn't like just, a couple. That was a lot of people don't like David Sirota. But anyway, the movie stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, Rob Morgan, Jonah Hill, Mark Rylance, Tyler Perry, Timothy Chalamet, Ron Perlman, Ariana Grande, Kid Cudi, Himesh Patel, Melania Linsky,
Trump.
No, Kate Blanchett, and the most famous at the end, probably Meryl Streep.
Yes.
And it's incredible. I went through so many famous people, and then right at the end, the most. I mean, maybe she's the most famous.
Yeah,
Meryl
I mean, it's
Streep.
between her and Leo. But...
Oh, Ariana Grande as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one of them. Anyway, so the movie was released on the 10th of December 2021 in the United States. Of course, it was released on Netflix, and I watched this. I didn't know we were going to be reviewing it, but I watched it like a couple of days after Christmas.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, of course, naturally, because of the conversation on Twitter, you suspected that there was going to be a lot of things you could talk about in a film review, and that is the case. So yeah, I thought...
Yeah, I nearly watched it. Although, interestingly, I'll just say I watched it with a group of people who are somewhat to the right of the spectrum, and that's based in America.
You did watch it in...
No, sorry, wait, rather I should say I would have... I nearly watched it, sorry.
Okay,
and
after that is a pretty big difference.
Yeah, yeah. But when I was watching it this time, I was like, oh, this would have made for an interesting discussion afterwards, because literally, all I'll say is one of the people who was at this place where I was literally went on a thing about how they didn't think climate change was a big deal. And I was like, oh, wow, it would have been interesting if we watched this movie with them then. But no, we didn't.
Yes, indeed. What could have been, Michael? What could have been? But to be fair, at least that person said it's not a big deal in terms of it not existing. So,
yeah,
could be worse. Anyway, can you give me what the budget was for this movie, Michael?
Well, as you said, there were loads of famous people in here. There's only one thing I think might make the budget slightly smaller than you'd expect, but I'm not actually going to be banking on this at all, which is the fact that I know that Leo in particular is really into the whole stopping climate change thing. So I could almost imagine he'd be like, oh, I sometimes imagine when like an act has like a thing they're principled about, they maybe aren't as in it as much for the money. But I mean, surely this costs like a lot of money because of the cast. I mean.
Because of the cast.
Yeah, because of the cast.
Remember, if you guess less than half, you get a mark against you.
Or if I guess over double.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. I mean, I'm kind of also thinking about how much the other... Okay, so I'm going to go for 80 million.
Oh, very good guess. Well
Hey.
done. That's a fantastic guess. The actual answer is 75.
Oh, good.
So almost bang on, Michael. Almost. So that's.
Oh,
a
I
great
think we should
start.
have a system where if I get there should be some kind of reward. Like if I get it bang on, and maybe even I'm not saying this, but if I do get it bang on within a rounding error, let's say, then maybe I should get some kind of treats.
Okay. Well, okay. Give me what do you think the box office was?
Okay. Well, again, this one's a weird one because it was on Netflix, but so I mean, I'm guessing the fact you're asking me, there must be some answer to it. It could literally be anything. Like it could be one of those things where it was released in the cinemas a little bit, but hardly anyone watched it. So I don't know, 20 million.
20 million. I mean, the answer is not 20 million, Michael. It is 782,000.
Yeah. Okay.
But you know what? Hey, we got a mark. You'd guess more than double. So there you go.
I know. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it literally could have been I mean, yeah, I don't think I would have gone as low as to make it not.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It was a tough one. But
Yeah.
2 weeks in, you've hit both budget and box office thing twice.
Yeah.
But anyway, right, Michael, did you like this movie?
Oh, okay, I won't look up. This movie it grew on me. I went into it with admittedly some kind of preconceptions about Adam McKay based on some of the other serious films he's done, where they can sometimes feel a little bit tedious in some ways. This film, I actually, by the end of it, I was like, you know what, this is working. I don't know if I loved it, but I actually quite enjoyed it.
Okay, so this is interesting because I thought the concept was fun. I liked the concept. But did I think this was a good movie? I did not.
Oh.
I think, particularly the second half, it kind of just goes nowhere. And it just completely, stops in its tracks. Even though, stuff is happening. Nothing...
You think it ran out of steam?
That is a good way to describe it. It did kind of run out of steam in the second half.
Yeah, well, I should also say, I went into this film not actually really knowing what it was about. I saw, and I think, am I right in saying, a lot of the trailers kind of almost portrayed it quite seriously? I might be wrong, but I swear I did see a trailer for this where like
I mean,
it
I'm
wasn't
not
being
sure.
shown as like a goofy comedy. It was like almost being shown as like a serious kind of like drama, like this comet's coming towards Earth. I might be making that up, but definitely I didn't actually realize going into this film. To be honest, I didn't know going into this film that it was by Adam McKay until I saw the credits. I was like, oh, it's an Adam McKay film. That makes sense.
Oh, how did you not tell right off the bat it was an Adam
I
McKay film?
know.
That is shocking.
I know.
When they do the Planetary Observatory Committee thing, and this is a real
No,
organization.
well, you know what? Yeah. See, that's the thing. Literally, when I saw that, I thought of Adam McKay. That's the thing. Like,
And you didn't think this was directed by him?
Well, I wasn't just going to assume it was directed by him. I thought, like, literally, I was actually thinking when I saw that, I was like, I wonder who's directed this. And I kind of thought to myself, if it's not Adam McKay, then I'm going to say this feels a lot like Vice. So yeah, good. I did know, but I just wasn't like, I wasn't immediately like, oh, it must be Adam McKay. But I did actually
how
think about it.
non-committal are you?
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
as
so
a staple of Adam McKay's work, and you recognise it's a staple, but you're like, I wonder who this is directed by. Could it be Adam McKay? I'm not sure.
Well, anyway, it was Adam McKay. But anyway, I didn't even know that going into it. But yeah, so I went into this just thinking whatever. And then eventually I kind of worked out what it was, what type of film it was going to be.
Yes, I will say this about the movie. I think that's again a good concept, and I have kind of rewritten the movie because again I like the concept. But this is I think I've made it better because there is some poor execution I think of it. But of course that there are some good elements about it, and again the concept does kind of make it watchable. But yeah, could be better in my opinion. But anyway, let's get into nitpicks or litpicks. How many do you have, Michael?
I have one.
I have a litpick. So
okay,
you go first.
So my one nitpick is when they're like kind of working out the trajectory of the comet. I feel like in an actual like space thing that they would like put it into a computer rather than like, because it's kind of like it's implying that he can do all of the presumably infinitely complex calculations involving like the trajectory of a comet through space on a whiteboard, and I'm like 100% sure that in reality they have like a computer which has all the relevant kind of, like I say, huge amount of variables that are going to be involved in that, and they just put in like the data points and it works out for them. So I guess I'm saying, one, I think it would be kind of a waste of time to do it on a whiteboard when you would presumably have computers to do just that, and two, I think it would possibly be pretty much humanly impossible to do it on a whiteboard just using your brain.
Okay, well these people are very smart, Michael. So,
yeah, but are they smarter than computers?
I mean, the computer could probably do it quicker.
Yeah, that's true.
That doesn't mean you couldn't do it. But anyway, so my nitpick, again, it's a litpick, kind of like last time with A Beautiful Mind.
Wow, you're so positive.
So when Ariana Grande says to Leo, "Why don't you mind your own business, you old fuck?" That wasn't in the script. She actually said that to Leo after he asked her if she was single.
Is she under 25?
She's close enough.
Yeah.
No, she's probably like 30.
Yeah, exactly. So too old.
Yeah.
Too old for him.
Yeah, but Leo didn't know that. Leo maybe assumed.
Yeah.
Because she looks quite young.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? Greta Thunberg, right?
Oh, right, calm down.
She's in the age. She's in the age range for it, and they have similar interests. Why don't you? I can't do a voice. I'm not going to try and do a voice. It's a very intense Swedish voice.
Yes. Why? All right.
Hello, I came from Sweden.
Why don't you mind your? That doesn't sound like Swedish.
To be fair, she doesn't actually talk in that much of a Swedish accent.
What's the famous thing?
Oh, it's like, how dare you?
How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Why don't you mind your own business, you old fuck?
I will not ride. Oh wait, she's becoming a like Chinese sensei.
She sounds Chinese.
I will not ride on your yacht, Mr. DiCaprio.
Okay, right. Enough of that. So let's get into the concepts / plot. So the concept is we will make a movie to point out how people don't take climate change seriously enough by substituting climate change in for another extinction world-destroying event, which is, of course, an asteroid hitting the Earth. And yeah, that is basically like, hey, well, yeah, I mean, I'll take it from Wikipedia. So the impact event is an allegory for climate change, and the film is a satire of government and media's indifference to the climate crisis. So yeah, people just don't care about the climate crisis, even though we're all dying. And naturally, this movie is going to be like, hey, what if there was an asteroid heading towards Earth? Like, surely then you guys would be, up in arms about it, surely. But if the asteroid was treated the same as climate changes, then perhaps not. I will get into whether it's a good satire, whether the asteroid is a good substitution for climate change in this allegory. But yeah, first up, Michael. I would just want to say I like how the movie starts because you mentioned, what did you say at the start? You thought the movie was a bit more serious.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously Kate DiBiase, Michigan State University, students. She's doing work on her telescope, and she finds a comet. And Dr. Randall.
I'm very confused, Luke, and I just thought about it just then, which is the fact that comets and asteroids are different things, and
Are they though?
Well, yeah. See, a comet's made of ice, whereas an asteroid's made of rock.
Yeah, I used them interchangeably before, but of
Yeah.
course it's the same basic thing.
Yeah, I mean it's the same. I mean you could say for all intents and purposes, it doesn't really matter if you're destroyed by ice or rock.
Exactly. It
yeah.
really doesn't
I was
matter.
just wondering whether or not like the film actually, because like the weird thing is, I just checked it then because I was pretty sure it was true. The thingy on the plot description says comet, but like I'm pretty sure in the film it's shown to be an asteroid. So that could have been a nitpick.
They say comet quite a lot. They do say comet.
Yeah, comet.
They say it quite a few times, so I'm not going to nitpick that. But anyway, so
fine.
Dr. Randall Mindy calculates it will impact Earth in about 6 months and is large enough to cause a planet-wide extinction event, which NASA internally confirms. I have to say, I do like the start because it's serious and it's done well. And I do have one problem, though.
Okay.
Because we talked about it just before, the planetary defense coordination thing they do at the start. A staple of McKay's work.
Yes.
And they don't do it throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah, it's out of place.
Yeah, it does feel out of place. But of course, initially when you're watching it for the first time, you don't realise that. But it does ruin the seriousness of the start as well. Because what would be great is if you didn't know what this movie was, kind of like you did, you maybe thought it was a bit more serious, and thought this was, a movie about this horrifying event that wasn't like a black comedy.
Deep impact.
Until Jennifer Lawrence, threw up in the bag, and then, the opening credits come. And then you realise what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I also agree with you. And the thing is, like, it's a bit weird because it's kind of like at the beginning when the film is being serious, you're getting like that specific, like kind of breaking the fourth wall style of humour. And yet when the film almost becomes more satirical and more absurd later on, the filmmaking, it's almost like the filmmaking and the actual substance of the film don't match up in a weird way.
But wouldn't it have been great as well if you thought it was serious?
Yeah, I agree with that
and
too.
There was no element of silliness, and then all of a sudden, oh, this is a comedy, and you're like, what the fuck? This is how can this possibly be a comedy with how serious this event is?
Yeah.
And so, but again, that little clue, that little ding, the planetary, this is a real thing, the planetary defense coordination. It's like, okay, now it's not. It's not fully serious because they're doing that, and that ain't great. They could have done that a bit better. But anyway,
I agree.
Throughout the next portion of the movie, of course, the comet is discovered. We see two things happen. The White House doesn't care about the comet. Instead, they're focused on the midterms and their Supreme Court nominee, and the media care more about Ariana Grande stand-in. I'm just going to call her Ariana Grande. By the way, I checked. She's 28 years old. But she's going to be 29 in this year, so we're almost right. So we see the impact event. Like I said, it's an allegory for climate change, and now we're going to go through, Michael, if that's okay with you, whether the satire works, whether the climate crisis, if you substitute that out for a comet hitting the Earth, whether that makes sense.
Oh, exciting!
Well, do you think it makes sense? You tell me right off the bat. Do you think it makes sense?
I mean, there's definitely issues with it as a one-to-one analogy. I think it's kind of a situation where, it works as a limited analogy, but there are definitely several things I could point to which don't really make them totally line up. It's kind of I wouldn't say that they don't make. I wouldn't say it doesn't make sense in like explicit terms. I guess that's me being non-committal again. But definitely there are some moments where like, okay, this isn't like a perfect analogy.
Yeah, no, it's not a perfect analogy, and I'd say it isn't a great analogy either. And because of course a lot of climate scientists have said, wow, this feels like real life for me. This is like, all this frustration I have released in this movie, and I can point to the movie I'm watching and go, yes, that's how it's like for me as a climate scientist. But I have to say, there are three, I've got three main ones, maybe you can come up with different ones.
Yes, I'll see,
Three fundamental reasons a climate crisis is different to a comet or an asteroid hitting the Earth.
Okay.
Point number one, and this is, they're all pretty crucial, but point number one, it's an immediate impact or 6 months out.
Yes.
And of course, everyone's going to die, and this will not happen in the far future. unlike climate change, where the worst effects will happen, 30 years
Yeah.
in the future, from the middle of the century to the end of the century. And of course, we still see sometimes the effects of climate change nowadays, but for most people, they're not affected at all by climate change.
Yeah.
And that will, of course, in the future, that will change, and that is the worry. But right now, that isn't the case. So there are plenty of people who are alive today who do not see climate change as a problem, and these are people who know it exists because they won't be alive and will die before the
Yeah.
worst effects are felt, or even any of the effects are felt. So that's why you don't have people or governments really like rushing to. There's obviously other reasons which we'll get into, but that is point number one. It's not an immediate threat because if the world's only got 6 months to live, well, 6 months, that's not a lot of time. Plenty of people, well, everybody basically on the earth is gonna live out those 6 months. So that's point number one. Point number two is rich people will survive climate change.
Yes.
Even if climate change. Oh, yes, that's a good idea. Yeah, you see the problem here. So, at its worst, climate change is projected to increase the Earth's temperature by, I believe, about 4 degrees. That's the worst case scenario. And that will mean billions of people will have to move or, alternatively die. But areas such as New Zealand, Canada, and Russia would not suffer from climate change, at all. If anything, they would benefit because now their climates would become more habitable. And so, therefore, wealthy people would just move there. And in terms of just, geography, like Africa, India, those are going to be the places that are worst affected. The Central Americas, basically where it's hot, essentially. Those people don't often live in wealth. They often are poor.
Yes.
Compared to, say, Western Europe, who, if our climate warmed by a few degrees, we'd be fine. And we are also, quite wealthy.
No, yeah, exactly, yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah, so that's another crucial point.
Yeah, because one of the things I was kind of watching the film and I was like, it's kind of like the word that came to my head, or the phrase is like, we're all in this together. And I was thinking like, obviously they do have the thing in the film about like the spaceship that's supposed to be able to escape. And I was like, okay, so they've had like this thing where there is a way out for the richest people. But even then, like the point is that there's actually, it's not going to be as much of a catastrophic thing for quite a large number of people who are, able to basically, sustain themselves off their own, like incredible wealth. So yes. It's basically, as with all things in life, the effects of it are going to be, it's not going to be the great equalizer. The effects are going to be distributed according to, people's economic situation.
It's the same thing that people said at the start when COVID hit. It's like, oh, anyone can get it, whether you're rich or poor, like everyone's affected.
Yeah.
And then once the pandemic went on, it very much appears, and this is still the case to this day, that if you are wealthier, you can isolate easier, and you could live, on your own or basically at your house, and you don't have to go into work, and therefore you're less at risk of catching COVID. And of course, it's a similar thing with climate change. Now, of course, the asteroid or the comet that would hit the Earth in this movie, that would kill everybody. So that would be everybody's in the same boat, apart from the little elite that escape off on their spaceship. But obviously, in terms of one-to-one comparison, the fact that many people, well, a majority of the Earth's population, I would bet, would survive a climate disaster. It would just mean that billions would probably die. And those billions would often be, the poorest amongst us. So yeah, again, that's why climate change isn't taken as seriously, because the people with the most power know they'll be fine, and that's another crucial element. And another crucial element, and this is the third reason, one of the reasons why nothing is done about climate change is because there is a lot of money regarding fossil fuels.
Yes,
that's make sure that the world's economy still relies on said fossil fuels. There is also this, I guess, kind of a similar point here. There is this kind of attitude that if we really try to tackle climate change, the economy will suffer. And I remember seeing a tweet from some person who leaked, and I just remember it because I was just like, yeah, of fucking course. Do you know who Fiona Bruce is?
Yes, I do know her. She's she's a newsreader. I don't know much about her.
So she does Question Time.
Oh yeah. She's like, I think I actually know what she looks like. But I
Oh,
don't know anything about
that's big.
it. I know,
Wow,
that is
that's
crazy.
massive.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so she's like BBC neutral lady. Of course, you suspect that she isn't, and apparently this is no way to prove it, but it's a very specific thing that this person said. They were in a green room backstage when the climate change debates were going on in the 2019
Yes.
UK general election, and apparently she said that there's no way you could do all this; it would destroy the economy.
Yeah.
Talking about all the changes.
Ironic
to
saying
climate
that
change.
in the green room.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's what she said, and of course that is complete bullshit.
Yeah.
Because the economy will be destroyed eventually with climate change.
Yeah.
Even if millions of people in wealthy countries will survive, it'll still affect a lot of people in terms of their wealth. They'll probably get poorer as a result, but whatever. That's what people believe, and there's nobody that would say that at least in this movie that the asteroid dealing with the asteroid would like destroy the economy.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
isn't a talking point. At least before the takeoff with Ron Perlman, maybe because of course you have the Peter Ishmael character come in, and then maybe that comparison could be made. But before he comes in, there's no way like you'd have like a debate on no we should let this comet crash because otherwise the economy will suffer if we don't let it crash. That just doesn't work at all. Maybe the White House could say, keep it on the down low, like don't scream and shout about it because then the stock market will be affected.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the best comparison you could make. But yeah, basically it differs from this comet differs from climate change in a number of significant ways.
I have three little ways which are like they're like pulled together to form one thing. So the first one is that there's obviously like fewer variables with the comet than there are with climate change. Like with climate change, it's loads of different kind of things happening at once. So the comet's just one singular thing, which obviously and it's kind of like all this is about like the relative idea of like people denying it, because the other thing is of course that with climate change that means the results are less predictable. So it's kind of like obviously the comet's like it's going to hit, and like they're very specific about like it's going to hit here, and obviously again that's not the same as climate change where it's kind of like it's harder to argue about it because you can't exactly say definitely
predict
and obviously the other thing is there's no kind of errors made by the scientists, because obviously one of the things that like if you want to actually talk about climate change, the way that people kind of deny it is by being like, well, they said that the world was going to end in like 2010 back in 1980 or whatever. Like basically they point to examples of people getting it wrong, and obviously if they wanted to just, so this is the only thing I was thinking is like I don't think either of these or any of these are as significant really as the things you brought up, although obviously as you heard I agree with the things you brought up.
Let's get through them.
But yeah, well I mean that's it. So basically I was just going to say that like that's why so it's kind of like I guess the difference here is I don't really care because obviously I'm not a climate change denier, but like if a climate change denier was watching this, I imagine a climate change denier would say, well, these two things aren't equivalent because they say the climate's changing but it was snowing back in Christmas, and like obviously there's no the film doesn't specifically address that kind of like angle, which is quite a common thing you hear.
They say the comet is being denied by like 23% of people at one point, and you make a good point. It's like, well, how would they deny it? Like how would they? It's like I don't see it in the sky, but then I guess they'd have to be. I mean, I'd say they have to be really dumb. But what I mean, it's just harder to deny something like that compared to climate change, where it's that much more unpredictable. They're giving you a specific like 6 days. 6 months, 4 days it will hit. It's very, very specific. So that's another good point. But the overall point,
no one can say that for climate change.
Wish they could. Yeah, I know. But the overall point is, there's no benefit to ignoring this comet, basically, unlike climate change. There's a benefit to ignoring that because, hey, the fossil fuel industry pays you a lot of money. Well, we don't really care about it because a lot of us are going to be dead, in 30 years. That's a lot of, the older generation. I think they subconsciously at least think like that. And if you're a wealthy Westerner over 40, you probably won't be affected at all. Even if you're a young Westerner like us, we probably won't be affected at all by climate change. That doesn't mean, of course, we don't want to solve it, actually, because we're not sociopaths. But basically, for a lot of people, no sacrifices are needed, and initially there's no corrupt reason to ignore it, since the tech companies aren't influencing the political sphere in parallel to how fossil fuel companies make sure US politicians ignore climate change. President Meryl Streep would have no real reason not to treat this seriously, unlike climate change. Like she'd have, of course, everybody would demand she take action? And so, yeah, the solution, I think I've come up with a solution to this, Michael. This is part of me rewriting the movie. The solution would be not to have this comet be an extinction level event. For it to mean that millions of people will die, but humanity can survive, and the concept of tech companies profiting off the comet could occur sooner as well. It could occur like quicker to make the comparison to the fossil fuel industry better. But yeah, basically the key thing is that, hey, we could let this crash, and yes, millions could die, particularly in poorer countries, but we'll still be fine. And that would be the overall message, I guess.
I do like that. I think that would definitely make it work much better as an analogy.
Yes. Let's talk. I want to talk about Meryl Streep now, Michael.
Yes.
She's very goofy.
Yes.
I'd say too.
A bit
goofy.
like Donald Trump.
Yes. Well, here's the thing. Even if the satire worked, she's just. And I just went through the reasons why climate change. It's fundamentally different to the comet hitting the Earth. But even if that did work and we ignore all those issues, she's just too goofy. And the thing is, presidents don't act like that in real life, apart from Donald Trump. And you could say Donald Trump isn't really that goofy. I wouldn't describe him like Meryl Streep. Like he's like a baby. Meryl Streep doesn't really act like a baby. She just acts kind of like zany.
Yeah.
So even then, it's not a one-to-one comparison. So and that is an issue because people can see how goofy the president is in this movie, and viewers will be like, oh well, our politicians aren't like that. I mean, obviously you could insult politicians a lot by saying how ridiculous they are, but they don't really act like Meryl Streep does. I mean, Donald Trump, he's a fucking kid, really. He's not like I said, zany. That is the good word to describe him. So yeah, what do you think about that?
I do agree that Meryl Streep, she's very silly.
It's just not necessary because you got Jonah Hill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean,
he can be the comic relief that works, just not the actual president.
Yeah. Basically, I agree. I mean, obviously, I guess to an extent. I'll say this now. It's almost like maybe there's a bit of a tension between kind of the, I guess, absurdist comedy angle versus the trying to make a point angle. Because it was kind of something I was thinking about with the idea of whether or not the comet's going to destroy everyone. Because I was kind of thinking to myself, when the comet's about to destroy everyone, it maybe works better from an absurdist comedy angle, but obviously not as well from a making a point about climate change angle. And I think that's probably a similar thing here, where it's kind of like you say, if you want to make a point about politicians, it doesn't really work as well when you have this person who's not really behaving like much of a stereotype of a politician, a politician like Donald Trump, who's very mocked, isn't really considered that much like, Meryl Streep is in this film. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, when she's in the White House and she's just being, oh, you never know what she's going to do next. Oh, it's I mean, that's really not the best. And yeah, you're right, there is a clash between making satirical comedy and absurdist comedy. And Adam McKay, of course, has done a lot of absurdist comedy in the past. Let's not forget his what was the word I'm looking for, Michael? When he works with Will Ferrell.
Oh, collaboration.
That's it. I was thinking of compilation, but I was like, that's not the right word. But yeah, collaboration with Will Ferrell. Yeah,
Will Ferrell, who played George W. Bush on SNL.
Yeah, that's a good.
And he was a goofy president.
He was a goofy president, but that's the thing. In real life, he actually wasn't goofy a president. Yeah. In real life, he was just a standard, Republican who put on an accent. Well, I mean, I'm not sure put on an accent. Played a character really when he was talking to the press. Yeah.
It was just fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Or when Boris Johnson asked those reporters if they'd like a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Would you like a cup of tea? I must insist you have a cup of tea.
Yes, yeah. Politicians play characters up on stage. Obviously, that's nothing new. But for example, in those situations in the White House, they're just they just don't like that. But anyway, so apart from maybe Trump, but of course,
I would be really interested to just see what Trump would be like, just on a regular day in the White House.
Yeah, no, there's the one person you're actually interested in seeing, what is he like actually behind closed doors. Again, he is quite unique in that regard. But anyway, so the critique, Michael, of the media next, because we've critiqued how politicians don't respond to it because they just don't care, and they're influenced by the fossil fuel industry. That's with climate change, and of course the comparison to the fucking comet isn't the best, but the critique of the media, I think, is a good critique, since, of course, the media can cover this comet however they like. They could, like the New York Times, for instance, cover the climate disaster far more heavily. Like they can, because of course they can do as they wish, but they
Yes.
choose not to. And of course, when they go on the morning rip, there's talk about how in the New York Times offices, like it's still being debated and the science isn't 100% clear, etc. And that is of course very clearly parodying the New York Times at how they have not in the past been fully on board with the climate. Crisis, and how a lot of legacy media, I guess, in the United States and indeed in the UK. I mentioned Fiona Bruce, of course. She's a stalwart in the BBC. How they just don't seem to care that much about it, even though they of course should. I think the critique on the media is better, and it's quite good. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I didn't actually write very much about the critique of the media because I think it is just like, I didn't really have anything to kind of criticize. And yeah, I agree with you. It really does. And also, I think particularly that idea of like wanting to put a happy spin on things too. Like the reality is,
with the morning rip.
Yeah, I don't think the media can sell like black pills. Like, I mean, obviously it's kind of weird because the media is obviously like, it doesn't always have to be happy. The media obviously sells horrible controversy or like bad things all the time. But I think there's some things where it's like, if a situation's so bad, the media like doesn't want to do it because it's just not profitable. So it's kind of like, and that's why, if anything, I think the media is more likely to drum up anger over like fake issues, because then like, the fake issues can just be manipulated in terms of how bad they are. Whereas like a real issue like this, it's kind of like, I feel like the media doesn't want to do it, and that's why they're all acting super happy. And yeah, I agree. And it's kind of like, I also think you maybe see it with I don't know, like Greta Thunberg. Like, I'm trying to think. I feel like I remember seeing this thing from like a media thing, and it was like, and obviously it was kind of like a millennial media thing, and it was like talking about how Greta Thunberg was like a queen and all of that. And it's kind of like, it was just, that was definitely like a comment, like basically pointing out how funny it was for this, like, and it was, I wish I could remember, but it was like the exact media thing. But it was like a media thing being like, oh, look at how great she is, and then someone's pointing out that like they're just using her doing all this and like fawning over how great she is as like a positive thing, but not actually addressing the reality that she's talking about, which is the climate crisis. I think that's definitely a thing, like trying to put a positive spin on everything and ignoring like actually the fact that some pretty serious stuff is being spoken about by these people.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, there's not a lot of talk about the serious stuff. So I think the US media does that a lot worse than over here in the UK.
Yeah, we love being miserable here.
Yeah, that is quite true. Like, we do love being kind of miserable. But that's the thing. I think US media does focus on trivial bullshit, and certainly rather than climate change a lot. And I remember actually when Jonah Hill went on, I think it was Jimmy Fallon's show, to talk about this movie and climate change in general. And Fallon really didn't like Jonah Hill talking about climate change at the end of his interview with him. Like, there's a great clip where Fallon's just looking off, and he's just really not happy with Jonah Hill talking about climate change. And it's like, yeah, there you go. What did the guy say to Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence? Jack and Bree like to keep it light and fun. They like to keep it light and fun. So yeah, and of course you have Jennifer Lawrence's boyfriend, who is initially shocked when he hears the news about the comet, but then he quickly goes back to looking for clicks and trying to build his career off of what's happened. Which he initially has this moment of humanity, which I like, and then you see him throughout the movie just trying to build his media profile by talking about his relationship with Jennifer Lawrence, and of course, not the issue of the comet is kind of pushed to the background. And I think that is the case with a lot of people in the media. It's like, oh, maybe there's one moment of, oh my god, I can't believe this, but then they quickly go back into this superstructure, to use that fun word, and because they have to survive in this, they have to have a certain attitude and a certain philosophy, and that is what Jennifer Lawrence's boyfriend is like. So I do like that. Did you like as well, Michael, how the media people got very mad at this movie because it made fun of them?
Yeah, the media's really got a thin skin.
Yeah, a lot of blue ticks were very annoyed at this movie, and the thing is, obviously, I mean, it's not, like I said, the execution could be better. But yeah. I do think, looking at, for example, David Rooney of The Hollywood Reporter, who called the film a cynical, insufferably smug satire, stuffed to the gills with stars that purports to comment on political and media inattention to the climate crisis, but really just trivializes it. Dr. Strangelove It Ain't and Peter DeBerg of Variety called the film a smug, easy target political satire and wrote, "Don't look up plays like The Lefty Answer to Armageddon," which is to say it ditches the Bruckheimer approach of assembling a bunch of blue-collar heroes to rocket out to space and nuke the approaching comet, opting instead to spotlight the apathy, incompetence, and financial self-interest of all involved. I mean, that part is true, but the smug, easy political satire, easy targets political satire. Again, so this is people like him. Oh, the media is such an easy target, and it's so smug at how you think things go down. That kind of attitude. Again, I think it just seems to me that there was an inordinate amount of backlash for a movie which wasn't that controversial, really, but it became controversial. I think partly because so many people in the media didn't like how it portrayed.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of reminds me of I feel like there's a whole thing about Donald Trump getting really angry about SNL, even though SNL was always kind of cringe, and it's almost like kind of a situation where SNL almost came across as less cringe simply because of how badly Trump responded. I know eventually it just became full on cringe, but I feel like it's kind of a situation here where it's again, it's. I mean, I would say, I wouldn't actually say, to be honest, that the portrayal of the media here is cringe, so it's not quite accurate. It's you could say, well, yeah, the portrayal of the media, it's an obvious thing, it's not that shocking, but then I guess the thing is, when people respond so angrily to it, it's well, I guess it is shocking, which makes it better. It's almost in a way, when somebody in the lamestream media starts railing on this film, it's almost in effect, they're telling you that this film is actually kind of alright, because it's well, if it's making them angry, it's got to be doing something right.
I know. So, British journalist and environmental activist George Monbiot. I'm sorry. I follow this guy on Twitter. I don't know how to say his surname. I apologise. But anyway, he wrote in The Guardian, "No wonder journalists have slated it. It's about them." And added, for environmental activists like himself, the film, while fast-paced and humorous, seemed all too real. And I think we'll get onto that with scientists kind of liking this movie later on. But I just want to talk about, building off of this, the lack of subtlety in this movie.
Yes.
And that's many critics didn't like that. It was very heavy-handed, and it was very clear. It wasn't quote-unquote clever. But I would say that is the point. Subtlety, not being subtle, is the point. This is a warning of a movie. And when you sacrifice your art, or to make the movie better, to make a political point, that is something that you have to admire. And I've always said that, Michael. If you'll remember my reviews, if you make your movie worse to make a political point, and it works within the movie, of course, then I think that's fine. All those in the media that were complaining about subtlety. Well, you just think about how ridiculous the sentence is. This satire about the world ending is too on the nose, for instance. Think about how ridiculous that sentence sounds. It's let's make sure the world doesn't end. Let's make sure that, and that is what this movie is. And again, it's just a cry for help, basically, more than anything else. And that is why, it's not subtle, but that's the point. It's not meant to be subtle, because climate change in the media is not shouted about enough. And again, I just want to, last bit on the media, this guy Richard Roper of the Chicago Sun-Times said, "From Streep and DiCaprio and Lawrence through the supporting players, Don't Look Up is filled with talented actors, but the volume remains at 11 throughout the story, when some changes in tone here and there might have more effectively carried the day." So I think that is the problem. It's well, it's always at 11. Let's bring the tone down a bit, guys. But it's a movie about the world ending and nobody doing anything about it. So, if that was the case, if you wanted a movie that's more toned down, wouldn't that be a bit ridiculous? If you're trying to shout about, hey, how the world's ending and nobody cares about it? Don't you see what I mean, Michael?
Yeah, I do, yeah. I pretty much agree. I think, obviously the film is not subtle at all, but I think it's kind of obvious that the film is trying not to be subtle, and that's kind of what I mean when I say the film sort of did grow on me in a way where it's the more I kind of was this film is, it was almost I kind of went through kind of the Goldilocks zone, if you like, of or actually the opposite to the Goldilocks zone, the bad zone, whatever the bad version of it is, where it's kind of I was okay, this is, for a while I was thinking, okay, this is kind of getting a bit ridiculous, a bit stupid, a bit over the top. And then eventually I realized that it got to a point where it was so ridiculous and so over the top that I was you know what, I'm enjoying this again. And that's so, I would agree with you that it's kind of once you realize just how ridiculous this film is kind of trying to be, you can't really fault it for being ridiculous, and you can actually enjoy the fact it's being ridiculous. And I think there are certain, definitely lots of films like that where it's like they go so hard that at first, maybe if you're watching it for the first time without really like knowing what to expect, it's like you just notice all of kind of like maybe the stuff that's like there, and then it seems to get a bit too intense. Like, okay, this is a lot. This isn't very subtle or whatever else. But then once you get over a certain threshold, it's like, okay, actually, this is clearly intentional. And yeah, it's definitely what this film did.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like it's a cry for help, a warning shot of a movie, and so therefore, if that is the point of the movie, that is the theme, I guess the overall theme, like, hey, wake the fuck up, everybody. Then of course it's not going to be subtle. So yeah, then I fully get why it's not. I do have an issue. There's one thing, like social media is something that Adam McKay clearly doesn't like. Complains about people paying attention to trivial bullshit compared to what's going on in the real world. And
we live in a society.
But that's the thing. Like the media covers what it wants to cover, and obviously the White House, has priorities. And so it's like if an individual person who cares more about Ariana Grande than climate change. I'm sorry. I mean, like, it's not really their fault so much. I don't think. I think that's just a pretty weak target, to be honest. And you are right. It's kind of like, oh, we live in a society, guys. It's like, yeah, I mean, come on, things are a bit more complicated than that. It's like Michael Moore. He really doesn't like social media. He doesn't like sports either.
Oh yeah, it's also like Neil deGrasse Tyson like literally tweeted something about like when the Super Bowl was happening. It was like, imagine how much our society would improve if people stopped caring about football.
Yeah, it's like people. That we can care about football and solve climate change. We can care about Ariana Grande and solve, like, Ariana Grande ain't stopping climate change from being solved, or people like her, or the Super Bowl. And it's, if the Super Bowl was banned tomorrow, wouldn't solve anything. But anyway, so we'll get back to the plot now, Michael. So like I said, the movie should have been about a comet that would kill millions of people and devastate the Earth, but not destroy it. And, it would hit near Africa, for instance. Therefore, the media and the public, they don't care as much. Plus, it would cost a whole lot of money to do anything, and the stock market might go down before the midterm. So initially, the White House puts things to one side, like they did in the movie. That's what I think would be better. It would work more with the allegory to climate change. But then again, I do like the next development because of the falling polls of President Meryl Streep. They actually decide to tackle it and prepared to destroy it with Ron Perlman. So launch day is scheduled then, Michael. And I don't know about you, but I think it's a bit shit that things are cancelled at the last minute. Like, it may have been better that this happens a couple of weeks prior to the launch, the cancellation, because it feels a bit shit. Like, oh yeah, obviously it's for dramatic purposes when Ishawell calls Meryl Streep out of the room and is like, hey, let's have a talk, and the rockets turn back. But again, it's more absurdist. But it's how these things happen is, oh yeah, a couple of weeks before the launch, things are cancelled with some backroom dealings, and not all of a sudden, just as the rockets are about to, or just have set off. So that was a bit shit. IMO, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree. It did seem a bit like, maybe a bit like lazy filmmaking in terms of like the plot progression. And yeah, I think ultimately it would have been, just a little bit better.
More realistic.
Built into it.
Because you want to make, when you're doing a satire, of course you want to make it funny, naturally, but you want to make it as close to real life as possible. And that just feels like a completely unlike how it would go down in real life. There'd be some backroom dealings, like I said, between Meryl Streep and Ishawell, a few weeks before the launch. But I do like we'll talk about the Peter Ishawell character in a bit more specifically. But I do like him saying, hey, we can use this comet to profit off it. And that is a good use of satire, since, of course, the fossil fuel industry influences politics in the US via campaign donations, and the government's ideological desire to farm everything out to private corporations so they can make a profit from it is still deeply embedded in the United States, even with Biden. I like this satire. This is good satire. It's a good way, because I was thinking when I watched it the first time, well, what's going to go wrong here when the rocket went up? It's like, well, how they seem to have solved the problem. Yes, okay, we can profit from it. We can make a bunch of rich people richer, as Jennifer Lawrence says. So I like that satire. What do you think?
No, yeah, definitely. I think it was the moment where I was like, okay, yeah, I'm because ultimately I was kind of thinking, like, how are they going to do this? Because like you, I was thinking like there needs to be this financial element, and obviously they didn't fully make a one-to-one parallel with the kind of financial element involved in the climate change, but it was definitely something. And I was like, okay, this makes sense that this would be the kind of thing that they'd they'd be like, yeah, we can get money based on this. And yeah, obviously the financial pressures are the reason why people aren't doing things about climate change. So it makes sense to try to have some kind of parallel in this film. And I agree with you that, thematically it wrote really well. And I did like that line, I guess it was when Jennifer Lawrence, says like, oh, so the rich can get richer. That is a moment where it acknowledges that it's, I guess acknowledges this idea that the whole like we're in it together thing doesn't really work, where she's basically saying, yeah, the point of this is to advance the case of the super rich against the common man.
Against the common man and woman.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Specifically, yeah. But the thing is, in my movie, of course, the comet isn't a planet killer, but will kill millions if it hits the Atlantic Ocean. That's my idea for this. And, destroys, say, Africa, the Amazon. If it hit in the middle of the Atlantic, it may hit like the Caribbean islands and Florida. Basically I'm trying to parallel climate change as much as possible, Michael. But of course, Ishuel with his drones, he can promise, instead of killing millions in my movie, he can promise with his drones only a few thousand will die.
Yeah.
And of course that is his best case scenario, but it's only a few thousands will die. And I think China and Russia, obviously, this is another element I'd like to add. They aren't happy about this. Hey, you can't just have the comet to yourself. We want a piece of the action as well. But the United States says, hey, this is our comet to deal with, since it will hit near our territory because of their massive empire. So it's like, hey, our military bases are the closest, so therefore we get to do what we like with this. So good American imperialism to justify them dealing with this comet and nobody else. So again, just more opportunities for satire. Again, I think that's the thing. The climate change comparison ain't great. You can make it a bit better. And I like that. It's like, oh, we the areas that are most affected by this thing are the areas where climate change will devastate the most. Like the Amazon, of course, it's not really climate change, I think, in the Amazon. It's more just
deforestation. Yeah,
deforestation, which of course contributes to climate change naturally. But yeah, so let's talk about Peter Isherwell specifically now.
Yes,
Michael.
Yes.
Kind of an Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos stand-in.
Yeah.
Ripe for satire. Just like how Venom had their villain be a Silicon Valley guy. I like that. I like this because they are
good new trend.
Yes, no, they are frauds, and of course we find out at the end of the movie that he's a fraud. So yeah, you like this bad guy too?
Yeah, well, I really liked him. Like the Elon Musk thing in particular was when he like he came up with his new solution involving drones. It kind of reminded me of the whole like Elon Musk divers, like Thailand whatever situation, where he like came up with that weird solution. And wasn't that solution supposed to be involving drones too? Like he said, like he could send drones into the cave and save the little kids.
Mark Rylance should have called someone a paedophile.
I know, yeah, exactly. I was almost thinking like, oh, it would be sort of funny if they really like, because
you should have called DiCaprio. You should have called DiCaprio that when they had their argument, and DiCaprio was like, none of this works. Yeah. And then actually it may hit a bit too close to home with who DiCaprio is.
Yeah.
So maybe they didn't want to write that in. But yeah, I think it'd be really funny if he called someone a paedophile.
Like, you probably only date girls who are like over half your age. Oh, sorry, under half your age, duh.
Yeah.
I was thinking like over half your age younger than you, but I didn't say it right. Anyway, the important thing is that, he's funny. And also, I mean, the thing is, again, like, we kind of up until this point been mentioning the whole thing of like, well, I have really, but like the tension between like kind of the absurdist element and the like accurately reflecting things. So obviously, to some extent, the more absurdist you make it, the less it's going to, you're going to lose subtlety with that. You're going to lose also accuracy with that.
There is a conflict.
But this is one moment where I think it actually like kind of works together, where it's almost
Are you saying you can have your cake and eat it?
I am saying you can have your cake and eat it. Because I don't know, like this case, I was just like, I just found this character was like so strange. And obviously, I guess you'd have to say, well, I guess it is going beyond like the actual reality of these people. But like, he's just a very funny guy, and like a lot of it is absurd, but it feels like it's an absurdity that very much works. Like the whole thing about them having all these data points so they can accurately like work out how people die, like that thing about her getting eaten by a Bombitron or whatever, and they're like, we don't even know what it is. It's like just a way. I think, he's like a very good kind of absurdist humor injection into it that I think actually does work in terms of not really departing from what the film is trying to say. It's like, these guys are weird.
Absolutely. Of course, I complained about Meryl Streep being a bit unrealistic, a bit too goofy. This guy's a fucking weirdo, but yeah, that works. And you are exaggerating, but not that much. And yeah, it is a case. Hey,
Yeah.
you can have these absurdist elements and this satire, and you can have your cake and eat it with Peter Ishmael character. Yeah, a great addition, a great character.
Of course, it is quite funny that The Simpsons have an episode about a comet, but The Simpsons also have an episode where Lisa buys loads of Maple products, and then she goes to the Maple headquarters, and she meets Steve Mobs. I don't know why everything just starts with an M, and he just completely. Oh no, okay, actually, he's not a total hero, but the point they do like show him being like how fantastic he is. So yeah, The Simpsons nowadays.
So fantastic that he somehow died of a very treatable cancerous disease, despite being the richest man in the world.
Do you know what happened to the unemployed pancreatic cancer cells?
What?
They got jobs.
They got jobs. They did. Yeah. Just take the normal medicine. But no, I'm sorry. That is so funny. But that's the thing. Like these fucking guys who think they're really smart, these tech geniuses, like Steve Jobs, just not having normal treatment that would have killed his cancer. And, Elon Musk being a fucking weirdo, calling people pedophiles on Twitter. Like, yeah, it's an easy character to satirize, and I'm glad it's happening more, and I'm glad this movie did it. So, yeah, and it's particularly because, like you say, the fawning praise that these people get, which is just fucking nauseating. But anyway, I think what would be a nice extra element to this Peter Ishmael character is in the movie he should do interviews with the media, and he should talk about the benefits of entrepreneurship and freedom. And that's why America is the greatest and why he's proud to be an American compared to the communist Chinese who don't see an opportunity with the comet. They don't see the financial opportunity because he's American and, this America is great. He can see, an opportunity to create jobs and wealth and all of that. And of course, he's not American. And the irony is that Elon Musk, of course, isn't American, despite he's South African, Michael.
Yes,
from apartheid South Africa. And that's the thing. Rylance in this movie even talks about China's big panda paw, I think. So I thought that was a funny line. But they could go further and really, take the satire a bit further. Because Elon Musk, I don't think he's a fan of... he's part of that. He cultivates... Obviously, he's very popular on Reddit. And he cultivates these kind of fans who often, hate China. Really weirdly are obsessed with China and hate it. So I think that would be, again, a nice extra bit of satire they could have added in there. But yeah. Here's something I don't like in the movie, Michael. Right.
Okay.
Now. Jennifer Lawrence tells people what will happen and there's a riot.
Because they wouldn't care.
Yeah. I think people, they'd be like, oh, fucking shit. There won't be a riot. Cause people,
that's gay.
Yeah. Nobody cares enough about shit to riot, unfortunately. There'd be protests. But, people don't really riot that much, even if the right wing in America would like people to believe otherwise. Rioting happened so much more back in the day. And,
people don't riot like they used to.
No, honestly, they really don't. They really don't. Riots need to come back in a big way.
Remember when there was that massive riot in London over that one guy getting shot? Mark Duggan, was that his name?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Bad name.
Yeah. No, that would not happen nowadays.
Yeah.
That would not. I can't see how it would. And again, you could have Black Lives Matter protests, but the protests are very easily controlled and managed. And there's 6 months of protesting after the death of George Floyd. Nothing happened. So
yeah, exactly.
There you go. Yeah. Anyway, so I don't think people would riot that much at all. And basically, I think again in my version of the movie, the plan should be released to the public, and then the culture war then starts happening regarding whether it's better for the comet to hit Earth and for all these minerals to be extracted, because that's freedom in the American way, and communist China don't want that, or to be blown up, of course, because if worst comes to the worst, millions will die, and even if the best outcome happens, there will still be mass devastation along the coast of Africa and Brazil, where, of course, in my movie, the comet would be set to land, which is kind of similar. So. Yeah, I do like the kind of culture war element coming into things, because there definitely would be that with, I guess the American superiority. I think it would work better in my movie, this American superiority of, we're not going to die from it. So yeah, we might as well take the risk and let the comet hit the Earth.
Well, actually, you know what? That's something else which is kind of missing from this, and it's like the fact that with climate change, there's a whole thing about kind of different countries having different priorities. So obviously, for example, in America, they have access to large amounts of oil, just naturally. And that means that for them, it's kind of like they would be denying themselves. So, for example, in Europe, there are lots of places in Europe which actually have to import oil. So,
like Germany is just building a massive pipeline to do that right now.
Yeah. Well, that's the point. Yeah. So obviously,
Yeah.
it can be more cost effective for European countries to import oil, but it also gives European countries at least some incentive to switch to renewable.
Yes.
Whereas in America, there's like hardly any incentive at all from an economic perspective because they have the oil right there already. They literally have to be denying us. And obviously, the other example is China. And obviously, I know it's like, lame to dunk on China, but it is literally a fact that China has huge amounts of coal, and they're in a situation where they're being told like, hey, you can't use coal because it's bad for the environment, and China's in a situation like, well, we're sat on top of all of this coal. It's like way cheaper than switching to renewable. So there's like the economic aspect, and obviously there's let's just say there's like a degree to which there's like a intersection between kind of the global economic conditions of countries and climate change, which obviously can't. And again, it's kind of like I don't think you could. I think it would be impossible.
Well, I'm trying to do my best here, Michael.
I know.
I'm
sorry,
trying to do my best with where the comet lands.
Yeah.
It may hit Florida. Like how basically climate change may affect Florida. But apart from that, the United States is going to be pretty damn good. Certainly, I think Kate Dibiaski's character's family, they probably live in Michigan, I'm guessing. From, they go to Michigan State, so they'll be fine. They won't be affected by the tsunami that will ravage the East Coast. And that's the case with a lot of Americans who were like, hey, let's go for it with this. Even if climate change is real, hey, it won't affect us that badly. And like you said, we've got the coal, we've got the oil. Let's make use of this. And who the fuck cares if a bunch of people in countries thousands of miles away die? It is that American superiority complex that does exist, of course, in other countries, but particularly in America. Certainly as well, of course, they're the world's number one power. So
do you know what? Oh wait, okay, no, sorry. Okay, wait. Sorry, I was going to say that I was interested in the comet that killed the dinosaurs, because I was almost thinking to myself, like, I was thinking kind of just about the whole, like, everybody dying, and I was thinking how, like, the comet that killed the dinosaurs, it's not as if, like, the entire world ended, it's just, like, dinosaurs went extinct. For context, the comet that killed the dinosaurs is estimated to be 4.3 miles, which obviously this is twice that big, so that's okay. I just suddenly... Sorry,
If this was maybe, what about, 2 miles across, maybe?
Yeah, so that would work. Because, I mean, the thing is, obviously, the funny thing is that I think I'm right in
calculations.
saying... I think I'm right in saying that the comet that killed the dinosaurs mostly killed them through climate change. Like, basically, the comet hit the Earth, and it, like, sent all the clouds into the sky, which killed lots of the trees, and then basically that caused, like, a...
It was a long-term effect, basically. Yeah, rather than short-term. And, of course... Yeah, that would be harder to pull off in a movie. But anyway, let's get on to the second half of the movie. This is where I said at the start, the movie kind of just runs out of steam, just goes nowhere. Because, okay, we have this situation where the comet is going to hit Earth and Isherwell's going to deal with it, and the characters just have to kind of just mill around because nothing can really happen in regards to the plot, and they're just doing a bunch of shit. So, yeah, like, of course, Leonardo DiCaprio's character quits when he figures out Isherwell is a fraud. Timothy Chalamet's there. He's chilling.
Yeah, that was so weird.
Yeah, the concerts. There's some concerts. Don't Look Up and Look Up.
Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of liked the Don't Look Up and the Look Up thing. So the thing about the Don't Look Up, two things. One, I like how, I mean, I know this is a bit weird because, like, of the whole thing around Bernie and Hillary and Letters Being Happened written by David Sirota, but obviously Don't Look Up is a lot like Lock Her Up. Which I just thought was like funny because it's like the way they were chanting "Don't look up." But I don't know, it was kind of funny to have that idea of like just a chant that. I mean, obviously, again, it's an exaggeration, but obviously, there's the fact, for example, that you had the phrase like "build the wall," which obviously building the wall, like the wall was just a terrible, self-evidently not intelligent policy decision. Like, you can't just fucking build a wall in the middle of huge amounts of unoccupied desert and expect it to really achieve very much at all.
And you know what? If you build a wall, you can always build a taller ladder.
Yeah, I know, exactly, yeah.
A ladder, you can always build a ladder just 1 foot higher.
Like, that's what I liked about the build the wall thing. You didn't even have to get into an argument about, like, the morality of, like, immigration or, like, whatever you should. You just had to be like, it's just not gonna fucking work. Like, it's just completely pointless. But, like, that's the thing. Like, literally, they were chanting, build the wall, and it was, like, something which, it as a policy decision, it's rubbish, but as, like, a thing you can chant, it's like good. And it's kind of like in a similar situation, like Don't Look Up, they're basically just, it's a thing that you can chant, and it's kind of like you do you do get the impression that's kind of like, obviously, again, it's exaggerated, but it kind of actually does map onto genuine like political things, where it's almost like the kind of ignorant and proud variety of politics, which certain people,
Yes.
mostly on the right, do tend to.
Let's talk about that, because the Don't Look Up concept, I did kind of like it, because it was like kind of ignorant and proud, like obviously that is a very Don't Look Up, just don't look at this thing.
Don't look up.
It's good. But the thing is, I'm not really clear on the politics. The politics aren't that defined as well, because the thing is, there are three sides really in this. There's the people who don't believe the comet is real, then there's the people who believe the comet is real but it's good for jobs, and then there's the people who think you should destroy the comet
That's
anyway.
a good point, yeah.
And Meryl Streep is meant to be like kind of the centrist, like kind of if there is a Hillary Clinton equivalent, it would be that. But then Jonah Hill is talking to the Republican congressman who says the comet doesn't even exist, at the end.
They do kind of conflate
like,
those two positions.
It's like, well, Jonah Hill believes the comet does exist, but it'll be good for jobs. That's his position. And, again, just not the best. Kind of a mishmash. And of course, Jennifer Lawrence is a Bernie voter, I think. Her character. I think it'd be good if her and Chalamet were in the car talking about, Meryl Streep as president, and they say, are they just a random conversation, because they're in the car at one point, and they say they didn't vote for her, but DiCaprio's character did, and because he's more of the centrist, like,
he's
let's
an old
be more
suburban guy.
He probably voted for Joe Biden in the primaries. He's like, I voted for Meryl Streep because the other guy would really fuck us over,
ruin the economy. I don't want to pay more taxes.
No, I'm talking about in comparison to why he voted for Meryl Streep compared to Donald Trump.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was getting my words.
Yeah,
got you.
He'd be like, well, I voted for her because the other guy was would fucking kill us or something like that. Like, that's how people justified voting against Trump, which is a fair justification, of course. But then the irony would be, oh look, whichever
you voted for.
Yeah.
It makes no difference which of us you vote for. Either way, your planet is doomed.
And to be fair, that right now is the case with COVID and in America. But like, Biden has just fucking. It's incredible how he's just literally not giving a damn about COVID at all, just letting it rip through America. And of course, the Omicron variant isn't as deadly as like Delta.
Yeah.
But he just doesn't care at all. And it's like, it's nobody gives a shit anymore.
Sleepy Joe.
Yeah, but that's the thing. They never really gave a shit. That's what everyone suspected. That's why I didn't want him to become president of America. I care about my fellow Americans, Michael. Yeah, and what do you know? That's exactly what's happening. But anyway, the politics could be a bit better, I think.
Yeah,
but they're kind of clear enough, but not really. So
what did you think about? Sorry, I just want to say, what did you think about the guy who had the arrow pointing up and down? Here's the weird thing about him.
I like that.
He almost reminded me of Chris Evans.
Yes,
okay. That's which obviously because that's his thing. And I really like that. Like let's stop. Let's just have a nicer discussion.
It's for people who want up and down. It's like, well, you gotta pick one way to go, pal. You gotta pick one way to go. Unfortunately, so like I said before, just kind of shit happens for the rest of the second half of the movie. China tries to launch a rocket with like Russia and India, I think, and that fails. I thought maybe what would be good is the United States lets China maybe invade Taiwan as compensation. It's like, okay, we get the comet and all but you can go and invade Taiwan. I thought that would be a nice little thing, but then maybe the United States. What would they rather have, Michael? Taiwan as an ally or the comet?
I don't know. The comet's got a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. I was like,
think of all the wars they could finance with that.
Exactly. So the final twist, of course, is that the Bash drones will blow up the comet unsuccessfully. That is what happens, and that proves to be the case. It's kind of like a very nihilistic ending. In my movie, this is why, again, I think my movie is a bit better. Only a few thousand people are going to die, of course, when Bash sends 30 drones up to break up the comet into 30 pieces. But they are only sure that 10 will work. So, again, someone could leak this to fucking DiCaprio's character and Lawrence's character, who's working on the program. So basically they're like, 30 will be, 30 pieces. Actually, in actual fact, only the comet will only break up into 10 pieces, but that's all they need. They only need it to break up into 10 pieces, and that will mean a lot more people die. But it's a sacrifice they're willing to make. Nice little. What do you think of that?
Oh yeah, I like that. It's like it's very tongue in cheek. So no, yeah, I think that's. Yeah, I kind of like that idea. I think maybe just having it end kind of like on a very serious downer, like a downer where it's like taking itself seriously, it would be better if they kind of undercut it by having it as like kind of a happy ending that's not actually a happy ending. That might be a little bit more funny. Yeah, and obviously, I mean, I'm not saying that the ending is completely serious. I mean, it does have somebody get their face eaten by a bird. But no, yeah, I agree with you. I think that would actually have been more funny than. Well, I mean, obviously it would have been more funny, but also just overall better than having a film where it's like does kind of have a it's like it's very serious and sad, and they have this little family gathering, and there's
Yeah. But the thing is, of course. Well, there's another addition to this. So, it's going to break the comet up into 30 pieces. Actually, they're only planning to break it up into 10 pieces. But in actual fact, they only break it up into 4 because they fail even more.
Yeah.
I mean, and of course, another little because I like to put in a little bit of details. Michael, where's Silicon Valley?
In California, yeah.
And of course, that's opposite to where the comet is going to hit in my movie.
Oh,
so it's like,
Silicon Valley gets destroyed.
No, it's the opposite.
Oh, sorry, opposite. Duh, sorry.
Yeah. So the president's over there because she's focusing on helping with the mission in San Francisco, not because it could potentially cause a tsunami to hit Washington D.C. on the Atlantic coast. But yeah, and you mentioned the nihilism, Michael. It is a very nihilistic ending, isn't it? And everyone dies, and therefore the message is it that helpful? That, well, we're all going to die. That's what some people criticize the movie about. But after COVID, with Biden still fucking shit up, like we mentioned, some people said on Twitter, and I agree. Like this, if the world did end, this is what it would kind of be like. It's just like it seems just nothing works anymore. No one can do anything, and we're just like, politicians have. Across the world, or certainly across the Western world, have just failed to do anything. Like nothing can change. It's very stagnant. So if an asteroid did hit the Earth or a comet, then this is kind of how it would go because nobody can do anything about it, basically. So I get the thing is the nihilism maybe isn't the best message, but also it does feel like it would be the most realistic outcome, unfortunately. And I don't think even when Adam McKay started writing this, maybe COVID had happened or not, I'm not sure, but COVID has just added an extra, layer to this, where it's like, things are just fucked, aren't they? Especially in America. What do you think?
No, yeah, I definitely do agree that, having this... I think you kind of need to have it on a black pill ending. So I was kind of thinking to myself, a while, I was thinking, are they going to have this end in a happy ending somehow? And it's kind of once it got to the point where I was like, okay, actually, the actual experts have been shot. I was like, this is going to have to end on a negative downer ending. And I think that kind of has to happen. Basically, once you set up this problem and you kind of have properly elucidated all of the different factors that seem to stand in the way of progress, it's kind of difficult at that point to then have it so there's a solution at the end. That would be happy.
I know that. Well, again, in my movie, what would happen is you'd had 4. The comet would be broken up into 4 chunks, basically. Maybe even like 2. Maybe only 1 drone fucking works, and so you have millions of deaths on the coast of Africa, Brazil, Caribbean, the fucking Florida, the eastern seaboard of the United States, massive tsunamis. And so, then basically a majority of the population survives, after climate change, but there's total devastation. And, Isherwell does basically manage to extract some of the metals from the comet. And it would also, so it would be nihilistic and I think more realistic at the same time. Because as well, the elites in the movie, they go off to another planet and they die, of course. But again, with climate change, they'd survive. So I didn't really like the ending because it's the elites, they, because it's not total well, I guess it's still nihilistic, but it's not. It's they got their comeuppance at the end, didn't they? They got their comeuppance, but I'm like, well, I don't think they would really get their comeuppance, would they?
No, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Although, it was quite fun watching her get eaten.
Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, Michael, let's conclude now. You go first.
All right.
Conclude.
So this film, like I say, it kind of grew on me. The absurdist elements, I think, like I say, were things that I became more enthused about as the film went on. There was a while, and I think it kind of makes sense to have the absurdism more in this film than, say, it did in Vice, for example. And actually, this film had, I think, fewer weird kind of filmmaking elements in it. By the time that I got to the end, I was like, okay, yeah, I get the absurdism, and there were definitely some moments with the absurdism that I really liked, like for example the Ishawell character, and I mean, obviously, it's true that the film doesn't perfectly parallel with climate change. I think to some extent, I can excuse that with like, well, like with absurdism, sometimes like you ramp up the ways which it's kind of like you make it more extreme, and in doing so, you possibly take it a little bit away from reality. So having it so the comic's going to destroy the entire world, it does add to the absurdism. But then, having said that, I think it does take something away from the actual like impact of the film's kind of thematic analysis, which is an issue. But yeah, in terms of, and I mean, the one comedy thing which I wanted to mention, I actually did find it funny how Jennifer Lawrence stayed stuck on that thing about being charged for snacks. Like the first time it happened, I was like, whatever. But then when it gets like the third time, and it's like she's talking about it, and it's just like, I just don't know why. Was it just the power trip of getting of making me pay for it? And it's like, okay, I actually did laugh at that moment. So overall, yeah, I think this was not bad comedically. So the thing that takes away from it, in my opinion, is just the several ways it didn't quite perfectly parallel, and I do agree that your change would have helped this, but actually this is probably gonna be, I think, okay, no, I'm gonna give it a middle 7, which I'm giving it a middle 7 because I think it's 6 would be I like it, 7's like actually I think this film did some interesting stuff. If it would have gone a little bit further and kind of like introduced more elements that worked better with kind of like the kind of parallel and the themes and stuff like that, I'd probably give it an 8. I was thinking about giving it a high 7, but no, middle 7 for this film. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10.
I'm just doing higher than you so consistently this year, I think.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, yeah, that's the thing, because I think there was a real missed opportunity, because it was a good premise, it's a good concept, I like it, it just could have been executed better. And I really... I think the climate change is not a great allegory for a comet hitting the Earth. You can make the changes like I suggested. For instance, the comet will kill millions, but not destroy the Earth. Help with the ending too, as well with the Ishawell actually coming up trumps and getting the comet, and like what would happen with climate change with the fossil fuel companies. And overall the Ishawell character is great. I really like him. Good target for satire. But yeah, the politics is a bit messy, like we said, and yeah, I would rate this lower, but again, the critique of the media is something that I enjoyed, I have to say, and again, I just have to look at scientists. The critique of social media, no, I don't think that's that great. The critique of media is good, and I particularly like how scientists have reacted, because that is a big clue to me whether this movie hits its targets well. And if the scientists are saying, "Oh, this was so great, this is incredible," then I have to say, fair enough. The movie did what it was trying to do. So this is I've got a tweet, Michael. Do you know who this is from? Michael Mina, who is a scientist.
Oh, wow!
And he says he tweeted this a day ago. I just watched the movie Don't Look Up. It feels like Adam McKay, who wrote it, was literally in my head, or at least next to me the last 2 years. He's talking about COVID, I think, because he's how do you say that,
Is
Michael?
It endocrinologist?
No, okay, it's epidemiologist.
Epidemiologist, yeah, I don't know anything about anything.
And he says, I guess I'm not the only one feeling this way. So yeah, scientists, climate scientists, and yeah, I read some other stuff in The Guardian about climate scientists who were like, oh yeah, this really spoke to me. And of course, George Monbiot, the environmental activist, said, yes, finally a movie that expresses our frustrations. And so Michael Mina had a reply to his tweet, which was, lol, the movie had a good concept, but fell short due to clumsy execution. And that's kind of my critique, really. But that critique was by Frank Luntz. You know who that is?
No.
He's the guy who convinced George W. Bush, he's a polling expert, to change global warming to climate change. Because it sounded better. He's a right-wing Republican who used basically the dark arts of polling to... Adam McKay actually talks about him in Vice, if you remember. He's a character in that. But so yeah, that's the thing. I think about his comment like that, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of agree. But then again, you have this scientist who's a COVID epidemiologist who's like, oh yeah, this speaks to me, and then this guy who is responsible partly for the world not caring about climate change going, lol, no, not that good a movie, and it makes me bump it up a bit, because it's like, yeah, if it pisses off the people who have made climate change a bigger problem than it otherwise would have been, and it speaks to people who are actually in the world of trying to convince the public stuff about, COVID or climate change, then yeah, clearly it hits its targets. Like, it does what it's trying to do to some degree. So that's why I bumped it up from a 6 out of 10, where otherwise it might have been like a 5 or a 4.5, for instance. But yeah, so I just thought I'd give that explanation. Anyway, what are we doing next week, Michael?
Next week we are doing Soul. So we're actually starting our reviews in anticipation of the Oscars, and I think we pretty much always start with Best Animated. So of course, yeah, Soul nominated. Oh, sorry, won Best Animated.
Well, we don't start often
with Best Animated,
don't
we? Okay,
but we are this year. And maybe that'll be the case for years to come. But anyway, yeah, Soul next week, Best Animated Picture last year. Anyway, we've been selecting and reflecting on Don't Look Up, a very controversial movie plenty of people have opinions on, and we've added ours, so I hope you agree because ours are correct. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.